What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I got a few topics that I want to talk about today. They're all, off-season related stuff, draft, free agency, just little tidbits here and there from both areas. And I got a couple or three articles that I want to go through with some interesting stuff, some different aspects to look at about this team in the off-season. And then tomorrow, I'm going to shoot for tomorrow to actually do my first video related to my off-season stuff and free agency. And so the first video that I'm going to make is I'm going to make a video about the current players that we have on the offensive line. Just the current players that we have on the offensive line. I'm actually just going to do an in-depth look, statistical look, the same thing that I did for all of the free agents. I'm going to do a breakdown of each player that is on the Dolphins roster currently. And then what I'll do the next day is I'll actually go through and I'll start making my free agency videos, which will be the first one I think I'll probably just do on the right tackles that are in free agency, because I have quite a few of them on my list. So I'll probably do that. And then I don't actually have any free agent guards or players that are specifically guards. Some of these guys can move around a bit, but I don't actually have any guards because the guard position I'm not really worried about so much. Because again, I think Robert Hunt has that right guard slot locked down. And then between Austin Jackson, Michael Dieter, Solomon Kidley, and Liam Eichenberg, I would hope to think one of those guys could be a serviceable left guard, because then what I want them to do is get a premier right tackle in free agency, as well as either or one of a left tackle or a center. I'd like to see him actually get both in free agency. That way you can completely open yourself up in the draft to get other positions that are super important. But offensive line certainly is my number one issue with this team, so they do need to address it. And so depending on how they address it in free agency will determine the draft. But that's what I want to see. So I'm going to do one video on right tackles, and then the other video, because that's Tua's blind side, obviously. And then the other video I will make will actually be left tackles and centers together in one video. So those will be my next two videos for the next 2 days, because like I said, I'm planning on, or the next three videos rather, because I'm going to shoot for doing it tomorrow. I still have some work to do because I actually have to go through and break down all these players on the Dolphins roster currently, but it shouldn't take too long. I should be able to have all of that work done either tonight or by tomorrow at the latest, and then should be able to make that video for you. So anyway, enough of the previews of the things that I've been previewing now for like a week and a half. Let's actually get into the stuff that I want to talk about today. So the first thing that we'll discuss is we will discuss Aaron Rodgers a little bit more in particular, although it does have to do with the quarterback conversation with the Dolphins and some of these notable names that could be out there, like Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and Russell Wilson. But this article focuses on Aaron Rodgers, and let me just say this before I go through it. I get the allure of wanting Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Deshaun Watson, but I've never been a fan, just like I've never been a fan of trading a whole bunch of shit for Deshaun Watson and mortgaging your future on that one player. Same thing goes for Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Honestly, bro, I think Tua's more than enough. I think that he can be the guy. I think that you build around him properly and you maximize his strengths. I think he can live up to his Drew Brees potential, right? Those comparisons. And if you got that, and if you get that out of him over the next few years, then by actually properly building a well-rounded team, which is my base philosophy anyway, then I think you'll be completely fine. I think you'll see we'll start to not only win, but compete for the division, make it to the playoffs, win in the playoffs, and start competing for conference championships and the Super Bowl. So, and same thing, you guys know my draft philosophy. It's very unorthodox. I'd never take a quarterback in round 1 or 2 ever, but I would take one every single year and 3 year later. For a number of different reasons. I'm not going to, repeat that right now, but I just have a very different philosophy when it comes to how I would build a team if I was ever to build a team, right? Probably will never happen, but it's very different than how pretty much everyone in the league does it. And with the model that the league uses, you have to have the elite quarterback. Most teams fucking suck going after championships with that model, right? It's only the few who manage to get the elite quarterback that end up being consistently winners, right? And there's so few and far between that it's silly to me. So I wouldn't trade for any of those quarterbacks. I would stick with Tua and I would build around him properly. And I think that especially with this offensive staff, they could certainly do that. And look, I don't know. I guess that's really it. You guys get the point. But it is intriguing. I get it. Like, it is fun to think about. It would be cool to see any one of those guys in a Dolphins jersey. But, we drafted Tua. We've already got that. He's still on a rookie contract. We've already spent that capital. We could use the future draft capital and stuff to build up other areas of the team that have massive holes in it, particularly on offense. And that and the coaching staff was a huge reason for his lack of success to begin with. And still the amount of success he was able to have was pretty fucking incredible. So, anyway, it doesn't make sense to me, but I get it. And so we are going to talk about it a little bit. Realistic Aaron Rodgers trade offers that should be on the table right now. Now, Gary Davenport here, he does talk about a couple different teams. I'm going to read this little intro part and then I'm just going to skip to the Dolphins section. But yeah, so at this point in the 2022 offseason, the dominant storyline around the NFL is the possibility that big-name quarterbacks such as Houston's Deshaun Watson, Seattle's Russell Wilson, and Green Bay's Aaron Rodgers could change teams. None would send bigger shockwaves across the National Football League than a mega deal involving Rodgers. Just the notion that a two-time defending MVP could be dealt is hard to wrap one's head around. Of course, there's no guarantee that Rodgers, who passed for 4,115 yards, 37 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions in 2021, on the way to a 13-4 record and his 4th MVP award, will go anywhere. Per ESPN's Rob Demovsky, Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst recently insisted that no promises were made last season that if Rodgers, who is still under contract through 2022, wanted out, that he'd get that wish. That was not something I told him, Gutekunst said. Again, I think that whole conversation with Aaron last season before he came back was that regardless at the end of this past season, that we would sit down as a group and we would work it out one way or another. And it's true. Devontae Adams, a little spoiler alert, he's on my list of free agent wide receivers. But there's a good chance that both of those guys just end up back in Green Bay, right? Now, maybe not. And even if not, I think Aaron Rodgers probably will go someplace else, if I'm being honest. I don't think that he would go to the Dolphins, but you never know, right? So still, speculation ramped up again over the past week or so after the 38-year-old Rodgers posted a cryptic thank you message on Instagram that some interpreted as a goodbye. However, Rodgers told the Pat McAfee show after the uproar regarding this post that he has yet to make a decision regarding a trade request. There is actually another report out that he should be making a decision here soon. So, this could potentially get decided pretty quickly if he does decide, hey, yeah, I'm going to stay in Green Bay, and, they announce like some kind of extension or some shit like that, right? You've got to kind of turn everything else off so you're not working out, you're not straining or anything. It's kind of recentering. It not only heals you physically, but I think it takes away mental stress. And then the spiritual part, I think, is it allows you to kind of enjoy the meditations a little more. So when I come out, my first thought is intense gratitude for the people in my life. That's what he apparently meant by his cryptic thank you, goodbye, potentially message. On Thursday, Demovsky's colleague Diana Rossini tweeted that sources informed her of a couple things regarding Rodgers. The first was that a decision from the 17-year veteran regarding his playing status for 2022 is expected soon. Aaron Rodgers will be informing the Packers of his decision soon, per league sources. I'm told there are multiple teams with offers on the table, but of course, nothing can happen until the Packers allow a trade. The second was that Gutekunst already has multiple offers on the table. The last part set off a wave of speculation, almost as big as the one that came after Rodgers' goodbye that wasn't, which teams have already pushed chips into the middle of the table. And perhaps even more importantly, how big are those stack of chips? The thing is, it doesn't take that much speculation to identify multiple franchises that could be looking to add Rodgers, or to identify the staggering price that might be required to pry him away from the pack, barring his retirement. So just real quick, I'll tell you what his first offer is to the Broncos. They would get Rodgers in the 2022 fourth round pick, and the Packers would receive a 2022 first, 2022 second, 2023 first, 2023 fourth, Jerry Jeudy, and Drew Lock. Okay, now let's move down. So the Dolphins section, this is his second one on here, would have to give up, actually real quick, let me just show you what the third one is and what they would have to give up. So if it was going to go to the Eagles, they'd get Rodgers and a 2022 fourth. They would have to give up a 2022 first, the one that we gave them, the other first that they have from Indy, a 2022 third, 2023 first round pick, 2023 second round pick, and a 2023 fourth round pick. I mean, so many fucking picks, dude. Like, I can't be on board with that kind of shit. Anyway, here's what the Dolphins would have to give up. They'd have to give up their only first round pick this year. They'd have to give up their only second round pick this year, because it looks like that's our only second round pick. So we would, because I've been looking, and it looks like we do only have one second round pick this year as of right now. I thought we had one from San Francisco, but I think it's actually third round. I think it might be a third round pick or something, but I could have swore we did. Anyway, that's not important right now. Point is, we would give up our first round pick, the only one we have, and a second round pick this year. 2023 first round pick, so we would give up our own. Then we would also give up the San Francisco pick, so we wouldn't have a first round pick next year either. And then a 2023 third round pick. Oy vey. Like, see, I know some people, but that's the thing though, is like, it's just, what is your base philosophy, right? Like, a lot of people, most people, like, if you look at Omar Kelly, it doesn't even really matter. Most people are like this. Although Reason's not like this, Doug's not like this, Big O's not like this. In fact, honestly, I think really most of the Dolphins YouTubers put stuff out on YouTube would say their first option certainly is to build a well-rounded team, and they think Tua can be the guy if you do that. Like, I know Reason would say that, and Doug would say that, and Big O would say that. Doug would probably say he's not sure yet, and that's fair. But he would say that he probably thinks he could be, or that, at least has a better chance, but he would definitely agree with building a well-rounded team, right? So anyway, the point is most people though, most fans tend to have the, all you need is that quarterback. It's kind of annoying, right? Like, hey, but that's what most people believe. So, they would be like, who cares? Give all this shit away. What do we need that? What do we need? No, dude, like, it's just one of the reasons why I don't like that, aside from my whole philosophy on quarterbacks, and one, you don't have to have the elite guy. Two, you can get fucking a top tier quarterback in later rounds, etc., is it's just super risky, bro. Like, it's super risky. You're just making such a massive bet on something that has little to no guarantee of actually accomplishing what you want to accomplish. It's just a very knee-jerk, emotional kind of a reaction. And if you want to say it's not knee-jerk because of all the years of mediocrity and how long do we have to wait and blah, 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 it's still a very emotional reaction. All the people who say that are just being deep in their emotions, in the sense that, like, I'm just so hurt. And look, I'm hurt too by the Dolphins. That's why I'm one of the most skeptical Dolphins fans that you will see when it comes to the, progress of this team. And I've generally been right over the past several years and so on and so forth, and certainly over this past regime. So, but I get it, but that still doesn't make me jump to a rash decision, an emotional decision, and, a risky decision and say, I'm just going to say fuck it and just hedge my bet all in one player and put all my eggs in a single basket, even though that basket is brittle and so are those fucking eggs. And anyway, you get the point. It's not my bread and butter, bro. Like, that's not how I vibe. Oh God. It's not my bag, baby. I was trying to think of what Austin Powers says. That's not my bag, baby. Right? Anyway, Dolphins I can't do a very good Austin Powers impression, but I am pretty good at my Dr. Evil. Throw me your freaking burn here. I'm the boss. Need the info, right? Anyway, we're having fun. The Dolphins aren't bad. Miami posted a winning record each of the past 2 seasons and won 10 games in 2020. I hate superficial looks. They're not putting it in the context of Flores here, but I just hate superficial looks, bro. That's not the whole story. The whole story is so much deeper than that. Anyway, head coach Mike McDaniel has some things to work with as he takes the reins in South Beach. When the Dolphins do not have, with all due respect to Tua Tagovailoa, as an elite quarterback, and the team's limitation at that position cap its ceiling. Again, I just disagree with that, bro. I just completely disagree, because I firmly believe, again, after everything I just said, I don't fucking subscribe to that philosophy, but I do believe that if you properly build a well-rounded team, which again is my base philosophy anyway, Tua can be and live up to his Drew Brees potential. So you're telling me, let's say hypothetically speaking, if Tua, because, with all due respect to Tua, he's not trying to disrespect Tua here, but let's say he does actually live up to that Drew Brees potential, which he has shown, I was going to say flashes, but it's not even flashes. He's shown way more than the flashes over the past 2 years. And I was a pretty big critic of his decision-making at the very least in year 1. Although I also will say and tell you that I think that had a lot to do with the coaching staff, the shit offensive line, the fact that they put him out there when he wasn't healthy. So stuff that's not his fault, but, I think he can live up to that. And so you're telling me that Drew Brees, you wouldn't want... literally, the Dolphins, and one of the heartaches that the Dolphins had to live through is they didn't get Drew Brees. They passed up on Drew Brees. So you're fucking telling me that if we get a fucking slightly more athletic carbon copy of Drew Brees, that's obviously young and will theoretically be able to play for the next decade plus... Health aside, right? He's got to stay healthy. But you give him a stud offensive line and a running game, bro, he can be that. And he can live that. So you're telling me if we get a fucking more athletic carbon copy of Drew Brees, Dolphins fans aren't going to be happy with that? And that's not elite? Get the fuck out of here. That's what I'm talking about. That shit is so ridiculous. To say that Tua Tagovailoa caps its ceiling. Look, I agree if you want to say we don't know if he can live up to Drew Brees' potential yet. That's not a for sure thing. I get that. And look, I was one of the guys that said I would have taken Herbert over Tua in the 2020 draft if I was going to take a quarterback, in part because I have a concern about his size and his durability. So I understand that completely. But, again... if he can live up to that Drew Brees potential, and if you just do the smart thing, which is smart regardless of, again, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, any one of these guys, Brady, right? Because of the tampering, we could have maybe had Brady. You still got to build a fucking team around him. So if you do the smart thing anyway, I'm telling you, man, the kid can live up to that potential, and he will be an elite quarterback. It will just be not from a physical standpoint, but he'll be elite when it comes to his quick release, which he already is, his pocket presence, which he already is, his decision making and his ability to read defenses, that he needs to work on, right? And he does need to get put into and evolve into a more pro style offense, which he should be getting at least for the next few years with Mike McDaniel and this offensive coaching staff, right? Give him that offensive line. Give him a run game, bro. And I'm telling you. And it just doesn't make sense, all the other bullshit, bro. Like, anyway, Miami is the draft capital to make the Packers an intriguing offer, as last year's Trey Lance trade leaves the team in position of 2 first-rounders in 2023. The cap space is also there as well. Per over the cap, Miami's $60.2 million in wiggle room leads the league, and a restructure and or cut or two could free up significantly more. The Dolphins could also then flip Tagovailoa to another quarterback-needy team to get back some of the lost draft capital. To be fair, the lost capital is significant. 5 picks all in the draft's first 2 days, including 3 first-rounders over the next 2 seasons. It's essentially an instant rebuild for the Packers, the opportunity to remake the franchise around Love in short order. But see, and that's the thing, right? That's also part of the funny part about this, or that's one of the funny parts about this. Because if we were to do that, that's literally what the Packers then would be doing. They would be taking all of that draft capital to try and build up around their young signal caller, right? And even if he doesn't work out, at least you still built up a team around him. Because then the next guy is probably going to have, you know, an offensive line or weapons or whatever it is that they decide to give him. Now, they still got to do it right, you know, or whatever. But, like, I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway, also of the 3 teams listed here, it can be argued that Miami is the most attractive destination for the lot of Rodgers. I mean, he's also left some other teams out that could be potentially in play, but like the 49ers maybe even, or I think there's 1 or 2 other teams that I can't think of off the top of my head. But anyway, playoff caliber roster in a major media market that features warm weather in a state with no income tax. Don't think for a moment those factors don't matter. Of course they do, but I don't really give a shit about them. So anyway, now let's, you know, get to a little bit more. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I mean, obviously, I would support him if he came here, just like I would support any quarterback that comes. But I just don't think it's the smart decision, and I don't think it's for either the near future or the long term, like the short term or long term. I just don't think it's the right answer. I think it's too volatile, too risky. All right, anyway, now let's change focus here a little bit, because like I said, there are 3 different topics here. This next one I want to talk about, this article from the Phinsider. Do the Dolphins have to make additions at linebacker? First and foremost, absolutely they do. Now, what they need mostly is that stud middle linebacker. I think the other guys like Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel and Landon Roberts, and then maybe 1 or 2 of the other young guys behind them, you know, can be your core. But similarly to how I believe the Dolphins running back room at this point, you have Phillip Lindsay and Duke Johnson, who I think could be your core foundational pieces to build off of. You still need to add the right pieces to that mix. And so for me, the linebacking unit needs that stud middle linebacker, and the Dolphins running back room needs that, you know, that premier running back. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a 100% bell cow running back, because you will still sprinkle in Duke Johnson and Phillip Lindsay. But, you know, he's that kind of player, right? So, and that's, anyway, more on that later. The Miami Dolphins have plenty of needs on offense, but could also use some help on the defensive side of the ball. Jerome Baker is currently listed as an inside linebacker, but has had more success on the outside. Absolutely. He's a blitzing kind of running back or linebacker, bro. That's really all he's good at, and chasing down guys to make sure we get the tackle. Like, those are the 2 things that he's good at. He's right, blitz and chase guys down. Perhaps the team could look into, but he's not a good middle linebacker at all. Perhaps the team could look into adding a linebacker who is better against the run and move Baker to an outside role. That would be smart. But this doesn't seem as pressing of a need, unlike offensive line and wide receiver help. That's true. Linebacker is actually the 4th need on my list. So I have I have offensive line, then I have running back, wide receiver, and then linebackers. So that's my, you'll see when I get to those videos that I've been previewing for a while. I will have that in there, but But that's my priorities list. It starts with the offensive line, although again, what I want to do is completely address that in free agency. That way, depending on how the board falls, you can take the best either linebacker, wide receiver, or running back in the first and second rounds. Now, my dream scenario, as I told you in my last video, is if we could get Nakobe Dean at the back end of the first round and then get one of those three running backs, either Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker, or Breece Hall in the second round. I would just, the first 2 days, or the first 2 rounds, I would just love it. And then in the third round, either get an offensive lineman or wide receiver. I would love the first 2 days of the draft in the first 3 rounds. So anyway, where is it? Real quick though, we're going to actually have to go to this article, this other article, the main article. So Jerome Baker is one of Miami Dolphins' most productive players. But the spot next to him is a dark horse candidate to receive a major upgrade in the offseason. Now, he's one of the most productive players when it comes to tackles and blitzing. Again, right? Those are the 2 things he's good at. Everything else he sucks at. And he's not very good in the run game. He's not very good in his coverage. So, you know, in the seventh of a series, whatever. Dolphins had serious questions through training camp about who would line up next to Baker in 2021, as Landon Roberts was sidelined for most of the summer while he continued to rehab from a major knee injury. Also, too, that's the thing. Can you really rely on Roberts and Duke Riley and these other guys? You definitely need to bring in at least one guy, and certainly I would bring in, you know, maybe some guys in free agency, some like, you know, middle to the pack or, you know, cheap youngsters in free agency or as undrafted guys as bodies to compete and so on and so forth, see if they can rise up the depth chart. But you got to address this pretty early on. And I think, hopefully, like I said, I'd love to see us come away with Nakobe Dean. Anyway, Roberts returned in time for the start of the season, though, and started 15 games next to Baker, who relayed the defense's play calls. As the season progressed, roles changed. Baker found himself lining up more outside, which opened more opportunities for free agent signee Duke Riley. With multiple inside linebackers set to hit free agency and Baker seemingly finding a niche on the edge, Dolphins' top decision makers will be evaluating what's best for the position in 2022. And that's why they overpaid for him when they paid him this contract extension, because he's very limited. He can only do a couple things. Anyway, we're going to take a look at a couple of these guys. So Jerome Baker, actually, you know what? I'm just going to look at, they're talking about Baker, Roberts, Duke Riley, Sam McGuavin, Calvin Munson, Vince Beagle. I'm not actually going to go through that because that's going to be more in, I'm going to save some time in this video because that actually will be in my linebackers video. So there's no need to do that right now, but I will read through these questions and you know, pose these philosophical standpoints, right? How much does Baker continue to play outside? I think he needs to stay strictly as an outside linebacker and in that, you know, blitzing, chase motherfuckers down kind of role. And then, no, because then that also allows him to you know, play mobile quarterbacks and stuff. He's pretty, you know, he can be good at helping to contain mobile quarterbacks and chase them down if necessary, right? Prevent them from getting around the edge to fucking, you know, break one after they scramble away. So he has his things that he can do, but he's a very specific kind of player. Baker's ability to line up in different spots on the field is a testament to his versatility on a defense that preaches the importance of it weekly. They put way too much stock into versatility, though. Way too much. You got to have guys that are fucking good at certain things. I mean, you got to have a guy in every position that could, like I said, bro, well-rounded. I like to have guys that are good in every fucking position. You don't necessarily have to have stars. You do got to have a couple stars, and we do. We got, you know, Xavier Howard and Javon Holland in the back, and we got Phillips and Ogba in the front, right? You know, so, and then we have guys like Raekwon Davis and Christian Wilkins, solid players, right? So the defense is pretty well built overall. It's that linebacking unit that really needs it, and they need that fucking middle linebacker. Anyway, his switch to playing on the edge more often came as part of a natural dialogue with former coach Brian Flores, defensive coordinator Josh Boyer, and linebackers coach Anthony Campanile on how to best utilize his skills. They knew that, though, and there was no reason for them using him in any other way for the first half of the season. Also, there's no reason that it should take you that long to figure it out, especially since they've been here for the past 3 years. They know that. They know the kid. Anyway, with Flores gone and Boyer expected to take more of the reins with the defense, it'll be interesting to see if Baker's role is tweaked in any way. It certainly will. Which role players make a return? The Dolphins have a number of package-based inside linebackers who could make returns on team-friendly deals. The team captain, Roberts, is better in an early down role against the run, but struggled at times this season, especially against the pass, and I don't expect that to really get any better. Aguavin has shown an ability to be a productive pass rusher, and Duke Riley graded out best in coverage, according to Pro Football Focus. Any of the trio returning could excel in situational roles, but the Dolphins could seek more stability at the position next to Baker. And I think all of those guys, honestly, when it comes to the linebacking core, again, Roberts, now certainly a guy like Roberts is not going to be a long-term thing, but for this next season and to help transition, because then, over the next couple years you can draft some guys and whatever. But like if they go in with Roberts, Baker, Riley, and Aguavon, I keep forgetting how to say his name, as like their, core, right? And their building blocks, I'd be all right with that. And then, like I said, though, ideally, as it's stacking up right now, Nakobe Dean in the first round, and then a running back in the second with a wide receiver, or because we do have multiple third round picks, or offensive line in the third. That'd be great. Anyway, do the Dolphins make an unexpected splash? Inside linebacker is certainly not at the top of the Dolphins' top needs, with wide receiver and offensive line needing to be addressed first. However, the defense would benefit from a linebacker next to Baker who can defend the run. Baker's 42.4 run defense grade was 65th of 87 off-ball linebackers, according to Pro Football Focus, and it isn't a liability in coverage. The free agent class for inside linebackers isn't great, and picking at the end of the first round, the Dolphins will likely miss on the top two prospects in the draft. Devondre Campbell actually is on my list, so we will talk about more of that later. I'm not going to read any more of this. I'm actually going to move to the next one. But the final thing I'll say on that is like I said, bro, we'll go through this and I'll talk more specifically when I do these position breakdowns, but right now, I think my dream scenario really would be Nakobe Dean in round 1. If he somehow manages to fall. Now, look, if a few of those quarterbacks go in the first round, if a run on offensive linemen and wide receivers happens in the first round, then maybe there's a chance. And some of those defensive linemen also too. Cause look, we looked at those, all the NFL.com. We just went through and looked at all of their scouting reports, right? So check that out. One of my last 2 videos, or check out my last couple of videos, but check that out, because if the draft boards fall similarly to that, all of them except one of them had Nakobe Dean going before our pick, to be fair, but in every single one of those, there was a consensus run on defensive line, run on offensive line, and run on wide receivers. And then you sprinkle in some other things like safety, Kyle Hamilton and Daxton Hill or whatever, right? Or, whatever, right? Some linebackers and stuff. But if we can manage to get Nakobe Dean and then fucking, like I said, Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker in the second, and then offensive line and a wide receiver in the third round, I think, even though to me linebacker is the 4th biggest need, if you address the offensive line primarily in free agency how I would like to see them do it, and then that would make, then that you take care of offensive line, then that would make, for me, running back number 1, wide receiver number 2, and linebacker number 3 going into the draft. But if the board falls like that and Nakobe Dean is there at 29, I think you pull the trigger on Nakobe Dean, take him there, and then you can, especially if none of those running backs have gone in the first round, which is a good likelihood, especially with the way that, the NFL views running backs. Now, maybe one of them ends up going, but you can still probably get that second, you can probably get one of those other two. But if none of them go in the first round, then I think we have the 50th overall pick. It's somewhere in the middle of the second round. So there's a good chance you can get your running back. I think that's the way to go. All right. Anyway, identifying every NFL team's dream target in 2022. I am going to skip right to, and I'm not going to say too much about it because I've pretty much said it all here and how I would handle things, with offensive line being a free agency thing, right? I would take care of offensive line there, and then I just explained to you probably like 3 or 4 times how I would do it in the draft. So, and what my dream scenario is. But this is what they have to say. Now, I'm going to read through the description because there are a couple things that I want, additional points though, that I do want to make. So offensive tackle Bernhard Raimann, Central Michigan. Now, I have seen him linked to the Dolphins on a number of occasions, so it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. We do need help on the offensive line, depending on what they do in free agency, blah, blah, blah. But let's see what they have to say. So the Dolphins offensive line was a disaster last season, which is true, grading out as Pro Football Focus's worst overall unit. Fact, no player earned higher than a 67.4 grade, and 3 starters scored a concerning 52.5 or lower. The team cannot afford to look anywhere else. That was Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg, and Jesse Davis, by the way. The team cannot afford to look anywhere else with the number 29th overall pick, which they acquired from the San Francisco 49ers. That I disagree with. It depends. But if they address it properly in the offseason or in the free agency, then they absolutely can afford to wait until like round 3 to then dip in on an offensive lineman. And especially, again, one of the biggest issues with the unit is that they're super young, inexperienced, and raw, and fucking, all of that stuff. We need veteran leadership in that room. Anyway, Miami dealt their own first rounder in 2022, which became the number 15 pick, to the Eagles to draft Jalen Waddle, which I don't like. Even if you wanted to move up, you don't trade away our pick because there was no way we were going to be better than the 49ers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I didn't know they were going to make it that far into the playoffs, but I knew they were going to make it in as a wild card team, and I knew we weren't gonna, and I knew our ceiling was 9-8. Lo and behold, we went 9-8. Congratulations that they reached their ceiling, but, that was their ceiling. There should still be some quality offensive line talent available at the end of day 1, with Bernhard Raimann a likely candidate for the Phins in this position. That's another thing. I did mention it. I do expect there to be a run on offensive linemen in that draft in the first round, and that's another one of my philosophies is I don't go for players that there have been in the first couple rounds, particularly the first round, that there's been a run on, right? Because then that means all of the best blue chip talent goes. So then you'll be left with second or third round talents that you're then reaching on, right? Which we've seen them do with Austin Jackson, for example, right? So no, I don't like that idea. And especially because then if there is talent, blue chip talent at one of those other positions, if there's still a Treylon Burks or a Drake London or a Nakobe Dean on the board, you address that. Especially then if you addressed offensive line in the offseason, it just makes way more sense. Raimann has had an interesting journey to becoming a potential first-round pick, starting his career at Central Michigan as a tight end before converting to offensive tackle. So he kind of lacks experience there. He started as an offensive lineman, right? He didn't spend his entire time there. Now, I don't necessarily find that as a total negative, because it does give him more of a grasp on more of the game and the importance of different positions, but his time at tackle has been limited. He started 18 games for the Chippewas at left tackle, displaying a good amount of polish for a late bloomer. At 6'6", 304, the Austrian native is an elite athlete and uses good hand placement to create plenty of leverage. Those things are nice. Raymond's age, though, he'll turn 25 at the start of the 2022 campaign, limits his upside, but he's still relatively new to the position and seems to have plenty of room to improve. But we don't need a young relatively young. I mean, he's relatively young for coming out in the draft. I mean, 25 is actually kind of old, but we don't need a relatively young but kind of old coming out of the draft raw prospect that we need to fucking shape and mold. No, no, no. We need a veteran guy. We need veteran guys. That's why you pay buku dollars to that right tackle, and then you also get at least a veteran left tackle or a veteran center, if not both. I'm telling you, bro, that is the way to go. Even with his developmental arc just beginning, the Dolphins could still throw Raymond right into their starting lineup and see an immediate improvement. That's only projection. That's only projection. There's no guarantee of that. And in fact, if you look at the statistical odds, the probability when you got to adjust to the NFL, you're a rookie, you're going to make rookie mistakes, etc., etc. Even if the offensive line coach and, Applebaum is, great at his job, and even if the staff is way better and blah, 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 and can, maybe negate some of that a little bit, there's still going to be a learning curve. He's still going to have to get adjusted to the kind of pass rushers that are in the NFL, all of that stuff, bro. And we don't need a young developmental guy. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. With the team committing to quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, this is the right move to help Miami finally break through and reach the playoffs. I disagree with that. Again, and finally, this is how I will wrap this video because there's been said a lot, 40 minutes now. I've been talking for 40 and a half minutes. But this is the last thing I'll say about that. Again, bro, it just makes so much more sense. The more logical, the more safe, the more wise decision is premier right tackle and free agency, get at least also a left tackle and get one of a left tackle or a center, if not both, as well in free agency. You got the fucking money to spend, and we need the veteran guys in that unit to help groom those young guys, not just off the field, but on the field, right? Having those veteran players to help those young players, and that's what I'm saying, right? Imagine you get a stud right tackle, a solid veteran left tackle and center, and then you have Robert Hunt at right guard, and then one of those other players that we've drafted, I don't know, Solomon Kinley as your left guard. You're probably pretty fucking good, and you're certainly, I would say, going to have a pretty substantial jump up from dead fucking last, and by a clear margin. Like, we gave up 40, 60, 80 more pressures, something like that. It was somewhere in there. More pressures than the next closest team to us last season. I mean, it was just outrageous. So, do that. Then, depending on how the board falls, man, running back, wide receiver, and linebacker are then your top needs. Hopefully, you can come away with Nakobe Dean, and then either Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, or Kenneth Walker in round 2, with then a wide receiver and an offensive lineman in round 3, and that's what I would like to see. So, anyway, that is going to wrap this up. There was a lot there, a lot to unpack, the whole Aaron Rodgers and these elite quarterbacks and so on and so forth. I'm not for it. I think what we have is way more than enough. I think Tua can absolutely live up to that potential. And if you, I'm telling you, man, you give him that offensive line, you give him one of those stud running backs, you keep the defense basically intact. They also got to find a way to keep Ogba and Howard, right, and so on and so forth. They got money, man. Pay these guys. Pay these guys. Pay these guys. Pay these guys. And you can make it work, man. And I think you'll be headed in the right direction. And then just over the next few years, since you don't trade for one of these quarterbacks, you can then draft young players to come in and be replacements for Howard eventually when he does leave or retire or whatever, right? And then to fill other holes and so on and so forth. So, anyway, like I said, that's going to wrap it up. Before I get out of here, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all of your sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like. They got it, and they are looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself, while also providing you with an arena to dispute the terrible officiating. So look for the links to that in the description box. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. sports. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro, as well as on Instagram at Dolphins_with_Dillon. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
7-7. Miami wins it.